Hello everyone, I'm Brior, and welcome back to Goodgame Empire. It's been a while. I'll leave a couple of notes regarding my absence in the video description, but today we're checking out the Storm Islands. Earlier this year, the Storm Islands received a few minor but important changes that perhaps you've already had the opportunity to try out for yourself. Even so, I've decided to go ahead with this video anyways, partly for your entertainment, but also because I think I may have a few tips that even active players may not already know. So, if that sounds good, let's get started. The Storm Islands is a unique kingdom which resets at the end of each calendar month. Your goal is to join the event and collect as much Aquamarine as you can from Storm Forts and Storm Islands. You'll then be able to spend that Aquamarine either directly on rewards at Luna's trade boat or to build up cargo points which will secure you prizes at the end of the month. It used to be the case that building cargo ships was practically the only way of collecting cargo points. However, due to one of the changes earlier this year, players now receive a small number of cargo points each time they loot Aqua on the world map, either by attacking and capturing a Storm Island or attacking and looting a Storm Fort. This means that the more active you can be looting Aqua, the less you'll need to go out of your way spending Aqua and skips on cargo ships to collect those cargo points. I think that this is a good change, because whereas previously players had to, at least to some extent, pick between the rewards at Luna's trade boat or the event end prizes, now it's totally possible for active players to get both. This means that over the course of a single month in the Storm Islands, you can really do quite a bit to progress your account. This, in turn, is a good thing because it means that there's actual content for players like you and I in the game. What prizes are available, you ask? Well, at Luna's trade boat, you can purchase decent free-to-play decorations, relic equipment, and skeets. And for collecting cargo points at the end of the month, you can earn construction and upgrade tokens, either as an individual or as an alliance. And there are also special prizes like a more powerful decoration and even titles for the top-ranking alliances. We'll talk about those later on in the video, but for now, let's get right into the heart of the event, which is looting Aqua. As I've already mentioned, there are two different kinds of NPC targets from which you can loot Aqua. The first, and the namesake of the event, would be the Aqua Storm Islands. They appear on the map in both small and large varieties. When you see one that isn't already being occupied by another player, you'll need to send an attack, beat the native defenders, and then occupy that island yourself for either 6 or 18 hours, depending upon whether it is a small or large island. Small islands only give 11,500 Aqua, large islands give 52,000 Aqua. After your attack has successfully beaten the native defenders, you can pull back all of your troops but one. That individual soldier will be able to carry back all of the loot, and as a general matter, you shouldn't need to worry about defending your island from other players. Sometimes, another player will have launched a capture attack like you did on the island when it was unoccupied, and although that attack is supposed to bounce, it won't. So you'll need to send a message to that player and coordinate the return of the island. Because the islands have such long occupation requirements, this can be a pretty slow way of collecting Aqua. However, I still recommend you go for the islands when you can, since, unlike Storm Forts, our other targets, they can be pretty generous with the number of cargo points they give. Now, I'm sure you can deduce from the fact that our attack needs to beat other players to this target that our troops need to move quickly. So, how do we ensure that happens? Well, all of the normal rules apply. You'll want to make sure that your VIP level is high and your VIP time is active. Of course, you'll want to use a fast travel feather with your attack alongside fast-moving troops and tools. You can see here that my setup against Storm Islands is 2 waves of standard coin ranged attackers equipped with wooden mantlets. Why would I use wooden mantlets? Well, I also have a relic commander with additional travel speed and additional mantlet travel speed, which is a bonus which only affects the wooden mantlet tools. So these wooden mantlets are as fast as the troops I've sent to carry them. Beyond that, you will also want to upgrade your harbor in the Storm Islands. That's the equivalent of the stables for this kingdom. It costs about 12,000 rubies to upgrade your harbor to level 2. You might also consider upgrading it to level 3 if you are in a very competitive area of the world map. Let's say you joined the event right away and you're going for targets that are farther out. Well, in that case, it definitely makes sense to upgrade your harbor to level 3. Otherwise, level 2 should probably suffice. For a bit of context, I joined the event during the second half of the first day, so as not to be in the middle with the super competitive players, but also so as not to be on the edge of the map, where to one side of me, targets wouldn't spawn, and I go for Storm Forts and Storm Islands up to about 60 units out. I know that plenty of players push the event much harder than I do, but for me, a level 2 harbor definitely works. There is actually one more thing that you can do to better your chances of making it to the target first, and this actually doesn't involve shortening the travel time of your attack. What am I talking about? Well, how about seeing the target as soon as it appears on the world map? How can you do this? Well, let's take, for example, this large Aqua Island. I'm recording this narration ahead of time, so I don't know how much occupation time is remaining, but you'll be able to see it on the screen now. We can use this information to calculate when this target will reappear. After the occupation time concludes and the island is captured by the player who owns it, it will take 72 more hours, or exactly 3 days, for the target to reappear. You can do the math in your head and keep track of these targets on pencil and paper if you want, but I recommend a spreadsheet. Here's mine. I'll include a link to this spreadsheet, or at least a copy of it, in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. If you'd like, you can come over to File, make a copy, and then you'll have a spreadsheet of your own. You can see that I have a whole bunch of Aqua Islands listed by their coordinates in this spreadsheet. Some of them are up on the world map right now, most of them are not. This is the island that we've been looking at, so let me come over to the A column. I'll delete what's there, and we'll use this spreadsheet to calculate the new time at which this island will reappear. Here's what we type. Starting with the equal sign, and then the word now, open parentheses, close parentheses, plus time, open parentheses, and then the occupation time in hours, comma, minutes, comma, seconds, and that of course can be 0, then close parentheses, plus 72 over 24. That's because this is a large Aqua Island. I do not track small Aqua Islands, and I don't recommend that you do either, but if you insist, the respawn time for them is 36 hours. After hitting enter, there's one more thing that we need to do. We need to highlight the cell that we just filled out, and then Command or Control C, and then Command or Control Shift V. What this last step does is it copies and pastes our cell as a value, getting rid of the formula, which is important because now if we refresh the page or come back to it in a few hours, the cell won't recalculate and then give us the wrong time. So that's the whole process. Now we know exactly when this island will reappear. We can come back to the game at that time. We can have our spreadsheet up on the side of the screen or on our second monitor, and we can launch that attack right away. Now, obviously, this spreadsheet strategy is something which requires a level of commitment to and involvement in the game, which not everyone will want. That's perfectly fine, but I wanted to include it in this video as kind of a power strategy. On rare occasions, you will return to the spot where you are expecting an Aqua Island to appear, and it won't. The explanation is not that our spreadsheet strategy is defective. The explanation is that sometime after you entered data into the sheet, the island changed hands and the occupation time reset. As a general rule, this is pretty rare. There's one last thing to mention about Aqua Islands, and that is that any Aqua that you loot at the end of the occupation period will be carried back to your castle and deposited in your storage, including if your storage is already full. You might need to take advantage of this if, for example, you are trying to purchase relic equipment from Luna's trade boat, since the storage capacity for Aqua is 600,000 units, but the cost of an individual piece of relic equipment is 650,000. Any Aqua that your troops bring back from storm forts, on the other hand, will not be applied to your total if you are at or above storage capacity. This, of course, provides us an opportunity to transition to talking about storm forts, the other type of NPC target that you can loot Aqua from. Storm forts are a bit like Bearmond watchtowers in that you can attack and loot them immediately. However, they can only be attacked a total of 10 times by all players before they will disappear from the world map. At least as far as I am aware, there is no way to track when they will respawn, so instead, I occasionally just scroll around my castle looking for them, and typically I will go after level 80, level 70, and level 60 storm forts within about 70 units of my castle. Lower level storm forts are still fairly difficult to attack, but they barely give any Aqua, so I don't bother with them. Level 60, level 70, and level 80 forts, on the other hand, can be worth it. Each of these kinds of forts come in two varieties, either easy or hard. The easy forts only have a few dozen defenders at most, and a couple of defense tools, whereas the hard forts have far more defenders and more defense tools as well. There isn't exactly a gradient of forts, so each fort will either be easy or hard, and the reason that this matters is it will affect your attack setup. Starting with the hard forts, we're going to use an attack setup much like what we sent against the Aqua Islands, except this time we are going to fill in coin ranged attackers in all waves so that our looting capacity is at least 30,000, and once again, we can use wooden mantlets. For easy forts, you won't need to send any mantlets, and you also won't really need to expect any casualties. This might mean that you may want to send a different kind of troops, for example, ruby troops with a higher looting capacity. The advantage of that is you won't need to have as many troops stationed in the Storm Islands, meaning that you will be less likely to starve the troops that you have stationed in the Storm Islands. So now that we've determined that whether a storm fort is hard or easy will likely affect your attack setup, we need a quick way of telling whether each individual storm fort is hard or easy. Spying takes too much time, unless you're using fast travel feathers, and there's always a chance that your spy will fail, which is annoying to say the least. Instead, what you can do is you can simply click on the espionage icon and look at the number of city guards. This is one of my tricks that I don't think many players will know. Easier storm forts will have a higher number of guards. I'll put the exact number of guards for level 60, level 70, and level 80 forts, both hard and easy, up on the screen now. For example, an easy level 60 fort will have 60 guards, whereas a hard level 60 fort, which you probably won't want to bother attacking, will only have 50 guards. While it's not critical for you to be the first player to make it to each storm fort, sometimes level 70 and level 80 forts do go quickly, so most of what we said earlier about attack speed still does apply. What also applies is you want to make sure that your attack has high enough looting capacity, and this goes beyond just sending enough troops. You should also make sure that the Marauder is hired while you are active in the Storm Islands, and you should fully invest in the Hall of Legends perk 5-finger discount. One last thing you can do is you can make sure that your commander has some resources looted. That's not always something that players put a lot of importance in, but the maximum resources looted for a relic commander is 40%. That will help. Okay, so that covers, pretty comprehensively, I would think, looting Aqua, and if you follow all of the tips I've given so far, you'll be able to purchase a lot of decorations, for example, from Luna's trade boat. It will make a big difference if, like me, you are replacing old-style decorations, each of which give 200 to 300 public order. In fact, I'm able to give you a comparison between my first food outpost and my third food outpost, which are identical in terms of food production, apart from the fact that my first food outpost has new Tide Garden decorations. My first food outpost produces 67,000 units of food per hour, whereas my third food outpost only produces 43,000. Believe me, I'm aware these numbers are not impressive. Remember, I haven't played the game very actively for almost 2 years at this point. However, I think this illustrates the difference that public order can make. Let's say, however, that your account already has good decorations and relic equipment, and the reason you're playing is mostly to get the construction and upgrade tokens that you can earn via cargo points. You'll want to collect 200,000 cargo points on your own, which, as I suggested earlier, is certainly possible just by looting Aqua. However, if you're not that active in the event, you will need to build cargo ships. Now, this is not the first time that I've recorded narration for this video, and I can tell you that in previous drafts I always had a 5 or 6 minute section about cargo ships that was very boring, and it always boiled down to this general rule. As a general rule, you want to build the largest possible number of the lowest possible level of ships that you need to meet your goal. Cargo ships stop being substantially more or less efficient in terms of the amount of Aqua you'll need to spend after about level 8. However, those upgrades to level 9 and level 10 will require an exponentially greater amount of time. And of course, that time comes in the form of skips. If you find yourself needing to build those high-level ships, you should probably purchase 5 and 24-hour skips from the Master Blacksmith, and in fact, if you're able to see in advance that you'll need to build some of those ships, you should purchase those skips at the Master Blacksmith every week as the blacksmith resets its inventory. Otherwise, that's how this event is going to get you. You'll need to spend money to purchase skips. If you do intend to build really any number of cargo ships, you should absolutely upgrade your keep to level 5, since that will lower the construction time. There's one last thing that is worth covering in this video, and that is to go back to the rewards that top alliances can receive. Honestly, I don't expect players or viewers to care all that much about these, but because they were part of the new updates earlier this year, it is worth including in this video. Participating members, in other words, players who contribute cargo points, in the top 5 alliances will receive a sacrificial pond worth 1,800 public order at the end of the month. The top 10 players who contribute the most cargo points in the Victorious Alliance at the end of the month will receive special titles for the duration of the following month, and these titles stack, meaning that the Storm Lord, in addition to receiving a 20% combat strength bonus, will also receive the bonus to mead and honey production, and so on and so forth. I also almost forgot about the Aquamarine Hideout. This new building was important for a couple of months before Goodgame Studios made it so that players could get cargo points via looting Aqua. Nowadays, it doesn't really do anything important. It simply protects Aqua from being looted by enemy player attacks. As a general rule, the Storm Islands is not a PvP event, although sometimes at the end of the month, players will try to steal some Aqua from each other. So, you might consider building it, you might not. It does not increase overall storage capacity. And that really does bring us to the end of today's video. As I said earlier, I have included a few remarks in the description down below regarding my extended absence, but I'd also like to address it here. There are really 2 reasons for why I haven't been making videos. The first is that I have not been overjoyed, to say the least, about some of the things that have been happening in the game, and just the general direction that the game is going in. But the second reason, and by far the more important reason, is that I'm 22, and I've elected now to take the time and effort I once put into Goodgame Empire, and I'm directing that time and effort now to things in my real life. If you're possibly in the same position, allow me to say that that decision was the right one for me. I'm happier and healthier than I have been previously, and there are lots of exciting things going on around me. So, if you've been curious as to how I'm doing, the answer is actually quite well. Now, in terms of setting expectations for future videos, that's certainly not something I want to do, so perhaps it makes the most sense to say that we should think of this channel as retired. If I do make future videos, I will put them here. I do have some interest in doing that, but it can't be a priority right now. So, if it bothers you to have an inactive channel in your subscriptions, by by all means, you should unsubscribe. Thank you for sticking with me as long as you have. Thank you to everybody who has sent messages in the game, on Discord, or just via YouTube comments to the effect that they have enjoyed my videos. I appreciate it, and I guess all that's left to say is thanks for watching, and bye-bye.